Welcome to the Dave Takes It On news desk, bringing you the latest EV news from around the world. Today, we will discover the truth about cold weather range loss, where the worst performer will shock you. We'll look at EV public charging progress around the world and how the UK is leading the way. And finish with what has happened to the Tesla Model 2. Has it been scrapped, or is it soon to make an appearance? Well, let's open with that cold weather range loss. We include chapters as always. Now, as always, I will reference the data I use, but it will help you if you don't look it up yourself until after you watch this section of the news. All will become crystal clear. I received many viewer comments along the lines of, well, EVs are trash in the winter. They only do about 150-mile range at best. But you can only charge them to 80%, you can't discharge them below 20%, so that only leaves about 90 miles, and you lose half of that in the winter, making 45 miles left, and you're going to have to use 20 miles of that to preheat your car and battery each and every morning. It means I can't even get to work in an EV. They're not for me. So as ever, I take it on, try and find the truth. The best place to look is a really cold country. Norway. By chance, they also run two massive tests a year, where they test all the cars on the roads in Norway for range, winter and summer, and they publish the results for the public. Not every car is tested every single time, but they have a massive database of test results that you and I can access. Massive shout out to Jan for pointing me towards this. These reports are available in English, and reading through them all, I found that they run set routes, and all cars do that set route at the same time in the same weather. Unlike our sensational car test in the UK, where they drive the cars until they actually stop, completely fail, totally flat battery, well, the Norwegians consider that to be rather dangerous, so they drive them until the battery can no longer hold the car at the legal speed limit for the road it's on. Norway, don't have to remind you, is also colder than the UK. Here we get between about 3 and 7 Celsius. Visit Norway states minus 6.8 Celsius is average. It's a good 10 degrees Celsius colder than here. Because of the temperature difference, because they do not run them to totally flat battery, the results will be different to those from our motoring journalists. Not wrong, not better, just different. I'm also not going to go into full detail because there's an absolute mass of data going back many years, and it's absolutely fascinating. So my full analysis will actually be the subject of a separate video that will be launched shortly. If you subscribe, click the notification bell, we will notify you so that you don't miss it. But the latest test was just completed this month, January 2025. Over the test course, the overall winner was the Polestar 3. It completed the longest distance, being 537 kilometres. Yeah, they use kilometres over there. That's 335.6 miles to us in the UK. And that's hardly 45 miles now, is it? Runner-up in distance was the Tesla Model 3, pre-refresh, and that achieved an incredible 536 kilometres. Just one behind it, being 330 mile, 0.6 miles less, incredibly close. But the test put the Model 3 bottom of 24 cars tested and the Polestar top. Work that one out. Well, before you cheat and look at the data referenced below, the figures I use here are all accurate and they're taken directly from the report. See what I mean about being careful what data you use. Well, to continue, Polestar 3 is a luxury car costing from £70,000, while the Model 3 costs from £40,000. Is that even a fair fight? Just asking. Then there's the battery size. Did you know that Tesla has a battery size round about 55 kilowatt hour usable? Polestar 3 has 111 usable, which should be able to go further. Again, just asking. Both EVs will need nearly the full battery capacity to do the same range, well, within 0.6 miles. So the Polestar 3 will use twice the amount of electricity. Well, in that range test, the car that scored the worst that we can buy in the UK was the Smart 3, managing a measly 341 kilometres or 213 miles. Once again, 213 mile actual range in a controlled test out on the Norwegian roads in temperatures down to -6 Celsius is pretty darn good, and definitely not 45 miles. I would definitely get most people to work quite easily. Myth completely busted. That was the worst in Norway. Our results over here surely would be very much better. Now, in the test results, the Tesla actually came bottom, not second. It was dead last. Well, to be clear, it still did 0.6 miles less than the Polestar, but one of the tests, and there were many, one was not to see how far it could go, but to see how far it could go compared to how far the WLTP range said it should go. Well, for those who don't know, remember back to petrol, and every new car in the showroom had to have a sticker in the windscreen stating how many miles per gallon it did. It did city driving, motorway driving, and overall combined driving. Now, we all know we had no hope whatsoever of getting that MPG, but it gave us a comparison to other cars. If one said would do 30 combined and the other said 40 combined, then it's pretty obvious the second one used less fuel than the first. WLTP is the EV equivalent. It's how many miles you can get on a single kilowatt hour of electricity. Again, there's not usually a hope in hell of getting it, but it's a useful comparison. So this test, out of several, was to see which EV tested out of 24 contenders got the closest to the actual WLTP stated range in the depth of winter. That test was also run in the summer, so in actual fact it would now be possible by looking at both tests to see how much any individual EV lost winter versus summer. So now why a full separate video will be released, you understand. There's a lot of data. Okay, so this one test in January was just one part of that test and found which EV was closest to the stated WLTP range, which was the furthest from it. Again, not a range test. A large, long-range model with a huge battery should easily be able to beat a small city car with a small battery, obviously, but a test of how accurate the stated WLTP range is in winter conditions. Polestar 3, again won by a large margin, has a WLTP range of 560 kilometres, 350 miles, and achieved an amazing 537 kilometres, losing only 23. That's a staggering result, breaking the record for these tests, both for the smallest deviation ever recorded, but also for the longest range ever achieved, beating the Tesla Model S, which achieved an equally amazing 530 kilometres, 331.25 miles. However, again, check the data, because that was achieved back in the days when the tests did indeed run the car down to zero until it stopped. So the Polestar achieved the record with some battery still left. Just how much we'll never know, but there was some left. Tesla was last with a stated WLTP of 702. That's 438.75 miles, but achieving only 536 kilometres or 335 miles, being an amazing 23.6% less. Now, to a simpleton like me, that's either down to Tesla fiddling the tests or the test not accurately registering the correct figures when applied to, in this case, the Tesla Model 3, possibly other models too. I'm not qualified to state which is which. I'm sure there are many hundreds of thousands of Elon haters who know definitively which it is and have all the data to prove it's Elon. I personally will not take their claims with a pinch of salt. I'll just outright reject them unless it's backed up by actual independent data. Either way, the important news that emerges here is that data's data, but how it's read and used varies dramatically and can in many cases be used to provide definitive proof for both prosecution and defence. Here Tesla has the second longest winter range of any car tested, just a whisker behind a much bigger and dearer car, which is amazing. £30,000 cheaper and having a battery half the size, so being twice as efficient and using half the electricity. Or it could be seen as Tesla is misleading or lying to its potential buyers by overstating the range by 23.6% in the winter and should be penalised and forced to correct its procedures. Maybe what else is it lying about? Well, obviously now feel free to look at the data yourself, but there's masses of it. You might prefer to wait for my in-depth video. Either way, the old chestnut, oft repeated, of EVs being hopeless and unusable in the winter should now be dead and buried. Not one of the 24 models tested here in temperatures down to -6 Celsius on this test covered less than 200 miles. Not one. Well, EV public charging is still accelerating, even gathering pace. And once again, UK is leading the way. Many viewers seem to think the government announces their plan to grow EV public charges and they see chargers working the next day. Well, here at Dave Takes It On, we know the truth. We regularly see and film the harsh reality. Birch Services on the M62, we filmed the chargers in place for more than a whole year before the grid got round to connecting them. And on the same site, GridServe still have a huge hole in the ground. Well, a location scheduled to open to EV drivers last Easter has lain idle for an entire year as they wrangle the thorny issue of getting power to the proposed location of the chargers. The latest we heard, direct from the GridServe engineer we met, is that the quickest answer now might be to stop all the traffic on the M62 and dig a trench underneath, take power from the westbound side, where there appears to be plenty, to the east, where only Tesla now has enough. And no, they do talk, and Tesla does not have enough to share. Well, in good news, I said once again, because we now have overtaken Germany and become the largest European market for new EV sales. Yeah, I know the doubters and chicken littles be running around shouting, whoa, the sky's falling in, citing, oh, it's only down to business leasing and incentives and countless other myths. But the truth is, more UK citizens are driving around in EVs today than ever before, and the number is growing really nicely. EV public charging is key to some of that growth. So where are we? Well, price first. In 2020, the price per kilowatt for a public charger was hovering around the $300 mark. And back then, the average power of the average charger was between 50 and 150 kilowatts. I exclude Tesla here, superchargers, more on them later. Today, the average size is very clearly between 300 and 400 kilowatts. And we have filmed the first of the 480 kilowatts in Blackpool, and we're awaiting the arrival of the 500 kilowatts promised in 2025. Price per kilowatt, meanwhile, like batteries and PV panels, have plummeted. They've crashed down to silly levels. In the US and the EU, they're now down in 2025 30% on 2024 prices, and according to Bloomberg, in China, they're starting to sell discounted ultra-rapid chargers at 60% cheaper than 2024 prices. These are crazy prices and show just what can be achieved. The early days of transformational technology are always at high prices, but they rapidly fall until you'd be crazy to do anything else. Unfortunately, we still have a number of crazy people clinging on to the past. Drill, baby, drill. A 300 to 400 kilowatt charger today is costing about $58,100. Well, the USA added 144,823 L2 chargers, 49,604 DC fast chargers, a growth of 23,510 in the last year. Canada, amazing, did less well, just 6,764 ports across the whole country. UK, tiny country, relatively saw 59,228 fast chargers, up 36%, 7,450 rapid chargers, up 19%, 7,021 ultra rapids, up 83%, total 73,699, that's 30% up, and 537 hubs, up 103%. Well done UK, we're on target to meet 2030 targets, keep it up. But of course, that's buying chargers. What's it mean if you make your own and mass produce them on the most efficient production lines in the world? Well, it means even cheaper. Now people can begin to see how Tesla grew the supercharger network into the world's largest ultra-rapid charger network. In 2024, Tesla, all on its own, opened more than 11,000 stalls, reaching 65,000 stalls worldwide, which delivered 5.2 terawatt hours of energy. That's up 30% year on year, and added 3 totally new countries where you can now supercharge. In addition, Tesla became one of the fastest growing tenants and real estate deal makers in the world, as well as becoming one of the largest corporate energy users. They added 1,000 new locations, and more than 5% of vehicles on the road globally are now electric, getting rid of CO2 and gasoline at an incredible pace. Drill, baby, drill, but you might have a problem finding anyone to buy what you're drilling. Well, talking of CO2, I noticed that when I get an invoice now for a charging session, I increasingly get a mention as to how much CO2 I've saved, neatly calculated for me. Might not be of interest to the petrol heads out there, but others might find it fascinating. While filming, I do try the various chargers from various CPOs, even though they're often extortionate in price. Take note, Instavolt. On a recent charging session, I put in only 4.25 kilowatt hours. It's about all I can afford, but saved an amazing 1.1 kilograms of CO2. That was an eye-opener, as was the 8% I saved with using my Electroverse card. It was still a really abysmal 78p, but I do like the carbon saving data. Public charger installations are gaining pace. Planning applications from last year are now being approved. Electricity connection applications from 2024, and indeed many still from 2023, are working their way through the system. Sainsbury's in Preston has a major installation going in, with 10 kmh chargers being installed, hoping for an Easter or early summer opening. This year should be busier than ever. Winchester's getting 44 chargers from Instavolt in a hub. Gridserve added huge numbers to Rugby and Exeter. It's a busy time. Keep up the pace. While all the talk is about the Model Y refresh, many viewers are rightly asking me, has the Model 2 been abandoned? That is really interesting news. So if you look at the UK European top 10 best-selling cars in 2024, yeah, you're going to see the Model Y somewhere in there, often towards the bottom. There appear to be different lists depending on who you ask, but most of them do seem to include the Model Y in there, at some time or other, rarely at the top. In Europe, that honour went to the Dacia Sandero, the UK to the Ford Puma. The reason is not rocket science. The Puma starts at £25,000, Sandero about 14 or 15. The Model Y about 40,000 in Europe, 50,000 over here. And there are far more people with 20,000 to spend than 40,000 when they're buying a car. Yeah, you're going to get peaks when it might hit the Model Y, the best-selling car in the world, but the Model Y does not have legs. That is, and always has been, the Polo, the Corsa, the Golf, the Corolla, the Mini, the Astra, the Renault 5, the Focus, and so on. All of them budget models, which at today's prices, they're in the, £15,000 to £30,000 price bracket, not the 30 to 50,000 bracket. Well, the Model Y refresh will sell in huge numbers, might even hit best-selling car in the world once again, but this time it has some really serious competition. No, not specifically the Chinese. They're a bit of a threat, but the real threat, the budget models that are now in our showrooms. In 2023, when the Model Y did become the best-selling car in the world, there were no EV cars on sale under £25,000. Just one or two, like the MG4, under 30,000, and most were in the high 30s or 40s. In 2025, there are now 2 EV cars under 20,000. I say cars because previously there was just the Renault Twizy and the Citroën ME, basically covered motorbikes limited to about 20 miles an hour, close to it, and not classed as cars. Today, the 2 cars under 20,000 are classed as cars. One's a Dacia, and one looks remarkably like a Fiat 500, which has been a best-selling petrol car for decades. In fact, I believe it's now cheaper than the Fiat 500 petrol. In the Golf, the Puma, the Astra range, there are now a multitude of EVs which are much better, and some are just absolute classics where the petrol version has been discontinued, like the Capri or the Renault 5. And the only versions on sale are now the EV versions. Nostalgia will drive people to these. Wow, a Ford Capri EV, faster and quieter than the one I had 20 years ago, and cheaper to run too. Not in my opinion a great EV or even a good EV, but it is okay and it is cheaper than the Model Y. So that one's going to sell. And every single sale of a Ford Capri or a Renault 5 is a sale less for the Model Y. The Y is a big car. It's great value, it's a great car. But not everyone needs a great value big car. Plus, not everyone these days wants to buy Tesla. Now Elon has started some silly rants in public. That means even less sales. All of which now confirms the release of Tesla 2024 financial report on Wednesday for the year of 2024. The production delivery figures were out weeks ago. They were okay. Some good, some below expected, but generally about what the market expected. Share price went up nicely, but everyone's been waiting for the fine detail, the nitty-gritty, and it's out. And it confirms what I've long said. A link to that full report is downlinked below. In essence, it says the Model Y is out and it will end up the best-selling car in the whole world. But 2025 will also be a record year, and Tesla cannot rely on the high-end models. So during 2025, Tesla will need to release a number of budget models in addition to any robocabs and the semis. That's little lorries to you and me. In 2023, Tesla said, and I paraphrase here, 2024 is going to be a real shit year. But beyond that, it's going to be great. Well, 2024's gone, 25 is here. Tesla now says 2024 was a bad year. 2025 is indeed going to be a fantastic year where we're going to max out all the gigafactories and head to reaching 3 million cars. That will be a growth of some 60%. And that's back where they used to be. To get there, they need budget models and loads of them. The more budget, the better. I see a number of models being released below 30k, but not the Model 2 and not yet. See, the model refresh needs a good 6 months to make Tesla an absolute fortune, and it will. The launch model will sell out. Tesla will release the budget model of the Refresh Y in the low 40k, and they'll sell out. But then I think they're going to start dropping off really quickly, and then they're going to have to start bringing out some budget models, say the Model 3. No threat to the Model Y, loads of goodies missing. Forget kit screen in the back, LED lights, much lower range, etc. Down in the £25,000 range. Then towards the end of the year, we should expect to see the Model 2. Amazing spec, high tech, amazing tech, just going to wipe out all the competition out of the entire market in the run up to the launch of mass production of the RoboCab very late 25, early 26. I know you're going to disagree with me. You did ask me. Let me know your projections in the comments down below. If you haven't done so, please subscribe, bookmark this video so we can look back and see just how accurate or wild it actually was. I'm Dave. If you have enjoyed this video, please, as always, just like, and if you would like to see more like these, please click subscribe. Massive thank you to our Patreon members. Without you, we wouldn't be able to make as many videos like this. So thanks very much. I'm Dave.